I have been having an amazing fun time with blind cross-site scripting, and a while ago I tweeted about it that I had a $50,000 payout in a single day across multiple vulnerabilities with this tweet right here. And a lot of you reached out asking for a video and an explanation on how I've done it. But before we do this, there are a few things that we need to talk about, and I also want to talk about the things that I have learned in the past few months just experimenting with blind cross-site scripting and how you should also approach it as well, given the things that I've learned, and hopefully you can implement it on your own. Before we do this though, I gotta quickly give a shout out to our sponsor Snyk. And if you're familiar with my channel, then you know how much I love CTFs, and Snyk is hosting a CTF, or what they call a Fetch the Flag event, with no one other than John Hammond, my fellow YouTuber and friend. And if you're interested, this event is hosted from October 27th to October 28th, and it starts at 9 a.m. Eastern time. It's only for one day, so you can play as little as you want, or you can go through the whole thing. And during this event, there will be 30 challenges, anywhere from binary all the way to web exploitation. And guess what? You can create teams up to 5 people and compete for a chance to win a Nintendo Switch. So what are you waiting for? Hit that link down below. Go to snyk.co/nahamsec.ctf, sign up, and play. We got to talk about what blind cross-site scripting is. How does it work, and how do you actually exploit it? Well, first of all, blind cross-site scripting is no different than a regular stored cross-site scripting that you see on your end when you're testing a website and you get an alert 1 or alert whatever you get. But the difference is, with a blind cross-site scripting, that alert 1 pops up in an admin panel where you are not able to see it on an employee from that company. So let's say if you sign up for some sort of a delivery system, in the delivery node, you put a blind cross-site scripting payload. That payload pops up for them when they check your order, but it doesn't pop up for you, and it's blind because you don't see it, but you need to have a way to track it. And you can track this by a number of different ways. My favorite thing to do is just install the XSS Hunter self-serve version of it. It's on GitHub. I'll link it down below. You can use it, or if you don't want to install your own, you can use the Trufflehog version of it. I'll also link down below. You can use their version of it, but the difference between the two is that with XSS Hunter, you get the entire DOM. So when the payload fires, you get to see where it fired. But with Trufflehog, they don't give you the DOM and the source of the page, which kind of makes it hard to track. And I'll explain what all of that means in just 1 second. But before we do this, let's quickly jump into our lab. The lab is going to explain to you, how do you make it work? What does it mean? And the lab's purpose is to kind of show you what happens if you are not putting the payloads in the right places and not thinking about them as you spray your payloads across an application, looking for cross-site scripting versus a blind cross-site scripting. So as always, this lab is free. It is on Hacking Hub. All you gotta do is sign up, go to the website, click launch. It is called Megabytes, and it will bring you to this page where you can see the number of different assets that are involved. And in this case, we are giving you the list of the internal assets that you can check for. The purpose of this is so you can see what happens in the back end from an admin panel, but typically you don't have access to these websites. They're usually behind an admin panel, or you have to log in from SSO, or sometimes you need to have VPN and be on the local network in order to access them. But in this case, we give you access to it, and you can simply launch these. But before we do look at the lab, I have to quickly show you what XSS Hunter looks like on my end. This is a version of XSS Hunter that I have. It is pretty much ripped from XSS Hunter with some different changes that I've made to it. For example, I've added some alerts down here for me. I've moved the order of operation, but it is the same as XSS Hunter. I've just changed the order of operations, and I've added some custom things in there with the way I handle the reports and so on, but it does the same exact thing. It is literally ripped up from XSS Hunter, put on this page, and then what it does is it grabs the DOM, so it shows you exactly the source of the page where it fired. It grabs a screenshot, it grabs all the different headers, like the referrer header, the cookies, and where the location was, and a couple other small things that I found valuable for blind cross-site scripting. But also the other thing that I've added to this is, when you go to this website, obviously this website is no longer going to be accessible after this video, so you have to create your own. It will show the same JavaScript file no matter what the path is. So the way I've configured my web server is that no matter what the path is, whatever file, whatever path I give it, it is always going to serve you this exact JavaScript file. And that's for different reasons that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. All right, let's jump in and take a look at this lab. Once you launch this lab, you're going to see something called Megabytes. It is a delivery system. It's a fake delivery system. I hope you guys enjoyed the names of these different dishes that we came up with, but it gives you the option to add something to your order. It puts the cart right on the side right here, and then you can also log in or register. Obviously, I don't have a login, so we're going to go ahead and register right here. So for our name, we're going to put Nahomi's, for example, and I actually like to put a cross-site scripting payload in here. Usually people put an image tag in there with an alert. I like to put something like a script tag, and I'm going to point it to this site right here, bxss.hackwithnahamsec.training. And I'm going to leave it actually open just in case there is some filter happening, because sometimes what I've noticed is that whether it's on the front end or the back end is that if you put an actual script tag here, so for example, if it's a full script tag with a closing bracket here like this, it sometimes filters it because it's looking for an open and close, and whatever's inside of it gets ripped apart and just taken away. So what I usually like to do, and I've seen this work on a number of different applications, is I like to leave it open like this, or even sometimes maybe make the SRC capital. But a lot of times I like to leave my payloads open like that, just in case there is some sort of a weird filtering happening. And the other one that I like to do is I like to assume that I'm in some sort of a input field, and I want to close that out. So for example, if you're in an input field like this, you're going to have some data. This is where our name goes. And there's going to be some other stuff here, and it's going to close. What I'm assuming here is by putting these 3 right here is I'm hoping to close out this input tag and have my script start right here. And by doing that, obviously we close it. This is something that you have to assume with blind cross-site scripting. You have to make a lot of assumption on where your name or your data is going to end up. And if you don't make those right assumptions, then you're going to probably miss out on a blind cross-site scripting that somebody else like myself is going to find. So when you're looking at these things, when you're putting your text within these websites, always try to assume where is it going to be, what is the context where this text is going to show up. Is it going to be in a text area? Maybe it's in an input field. Maybe sometimes it's a script tag, for example. You also want to think about that as well. So this is my go-to usually. We can do it like this. Shout out to Zayed. This is something that he's made me do a lot of times, and it's worked out. So you put it like that. It closes a lot of different ones. Which we show also at the end of the video. We're going to put nahamsec at nahamsec.com. And then our password, we're going to give it something easy that we can remember. And we're just going to copy our email. We're going to say never. And then now we can go to our checkout. And here's where things get really interesting, because you have a number of different places that you can put your cross-site scripting payload in. Obviously, credit card number isn't one of them, so we're just going to fill it out with a fake number. Again, this is a fake website. We can put a fake credit card number in there. But now let's think about the other stuff. The delivery notes is the interesting one, because as you can see, we're in a text area. So if I go right here, you can see that it shows us in a text area. So my assumption here is that it's either going to end up in a text area in there, a script in there, whatever in the back end is. So I want to make a lot of assumptions in this case and try to close out of every single one of them. So if we are in an input field, then I'm going to close it out with that. But I'm also going to cover myself for a script tag. Let me close this really quickly and do this. So if we're on a script tag, for example, if we are in, let me put it in notes again. For example, if we are in a script, there's something like variable equals name, and our name or note goes here. By doing this, whether it's a single quote or double quote, by doing this right here, by putting our name as example, Ben, by doing it like this, we're going to cover whether it's a single quote or double quote, and then we're going to have that semicolon at the end, and then this is just okay to have. We can also comment it out just in case we wanted to. It all comes down to how you want to approach this, but I usually like to do something like a double quote in case this is a double quote or a single quote, so it's covered like that, and then the semicolon because we have to close it out, and then I can start with the rest of our script tag. So I'm going to go script, SRC, whatever we're going to do. So let's go back in here and try it out. But I also like to assume that we are in a text area, because they are putting us in a text area here. So I'm going to close this text area, and I'm just going to close this script as well, just in case there is a script tag. And then we're going to open up our next one. We're going to go here again, copy this URL, put it there. And again, I'm going to leave it open. And also, you don't have to do it like that. You can also put HTTPS here. I'm just in the habit of doing both of them at the same thing. It works. I like to do a / just in case there are filtering for URLs in the input. So you got to think about all these different filters that could be in place. Sometimes doing this has its advantages. also has disadvantages. You'll learn this the more and more cross-site scripting payloads you find. But enough with that. We're going to put that in there. We're going to put the same thing in the address nickname. I want to make sure we close everything out properly. So same thing here. We're going to put an address here. So we're going to put fake street. The address line too, if I don't validate it, also a really good place to do the same thing. So we're going to put a payload right there as well. Line 3, we will escape out of it. From the city, we're just going to put a random city. Doesn't matter. This is all, made up for our test. And then we're going to give it a fake zip code, and hopefully everything we have done on this works properly and our order goes through. But let's just make sure we don't make any mistakes, because the one thing that you want to keep in mind is when you are making an order or something that requires you to spend some money, you want to make sure your payloads are being done right, because if it doesn't, then you may miss out on a vulnerability. But also, if you have an error in your blind cross-site scripting payload, then you may miss the chance of getting it to fire, and you're going to miss out on a bug. So we're going to make sure the URL looks good, script looks good, it's closed, they all look pretty good. We're going to place our order. Now our order is placed. We're going to go to my account, and we can see our name here is the same. Just to make sure it doesn't fire here, you can see that they're properly escaping out of the single quote or a double quote right here. It's not going to fire. We are in an input field, so it's a good thing that we're trying to escape out of it, just in case I've made a mistake and doesn't get escaped in the back end. Sometimes I think just because somebody doesn't see that application because it's a backend system, they don't have to worry about security. We're going to go to address. We're going to go here. Same thing. It looks like same situation. The double quote is being taken care of. In our payments, we don't really have anything there. And then we have our order. And if we go here, you can see that our delivery name, it fires here. So for now, we have found a cross-site scripting, and we're going to take a look at this right here. We're in this div. We have just injected our payload in there. And what you can see right here is, even though the code is broken and it's adding this to the path of our website, because I have the catch all on my side where every single path is going to be served as a JavaScript payload, this still fires. And that's kind of why I do that, is in case something gets added to the end of the URL, something breaks, it still works. So I have that in there where we can see it fired, but we're hoping that this is also going to fire on the backend. Before we switch over to the backend of this side, let's take a look at one more application within this, which is the support tickets on this app. A lot of times companies have a support system available, but please, let me stress this enough, please don't go spam it, and make sure it's not a third party, because if it is a third party like Zendesk, then you are just spamming them with payloads that is going to go to a third party application that's either not in scope and not vulnerable. So take a look at this and think about how you're going to approach it. But a lot of times there's communication services that are custom built for an application or what's vulnerable for each of them. Let's jump into this. We're going to make it quickly. We're going to quickly make a support ticket. Same thing. I assume I'm in a script tag here. We can close this out and then inject our ticket. We create our ticket. We go back to it. We can see it fired. But I want to show you very quickly in the DOM why this works is because we are in a script tag. So if I look right here, you can see that putting that right here, we close our text area. And if this wasn't closed out, if it was a regular ticket, this wouldn't work because it would be in the context of a text area where a script wouldn't work. So let me go back, make another ticket. We're going to do the same thing, but we're going to take this out and we're going to make it a closing script and go to it and see right here. You can see without the closing text area, this isn't going to work. So that is kind of why you have to think about and make these assumptions on where this is going to fire. Keep that in mind. But there's one last thing. When it comes down to any place where you are handling orders, a lot of times companies are also collecting data on your browser. So they kind of capture the kind of browser you have. Sometimes it's for just analytics. Sometimes it's just for stats that they want to collect on their users, but sometimes they want to know who this user is, where they have came from, what's a referrer, and that kind of stuff. So one of the things that I do recommend a lot of times, especially in my courses and my trainings, is always assume that your browser data is being collected. So you can always go into your Burp Suite and also change that. Let me show you really quickly. We're going to go into here. We're going to go to our proxy. We're going to go to proxy settings. And all the way down here, what you can do is you can add a match and replace. So whatever browser you're using, you say, hey, when the request header matches the word Chrome, for example, I want you to add our XSS payload. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to assume we're in the text area, script. Also go back here and do it like this. And then we're going to inject our XSS. Let me go back here and grab the URL for it really quickly. Put it in there. And then I'm just going to put, something like headers XSS so I can track it for myself when it does fire. And now you can see that it is going to match and replace that for us every time that we do make a request. So we're going to go back, we're going to make another ticket, and we're going to make sure our burp suite is on, and we're going to create the ticket. And you can see right here, it is going to inject our payload where the word Chrome was. It's replacing Chrome with this whole thing, and it's going to send that out, and we have created our ticket. Okay, we've done this so far. Now let's quickly switch over to what it looks like if we are an admin on this site. Let's look at the backend, starting with this one. For this hub, we do have a username and password, so we can quickly go here, typing guest and the password admin, and that's going to bring us into the backend. Remember, you don't always get to see this. You don't have access to it. This is for lab purposes. We're going to give it to you so you can kind of look at what it looks like. But you can see I made this order right here, and if I go to it on pending, you can see that my blind cross-site scripting payload is firing, not on delivery name, not on delivery address, not on the address line 2, but it's firing on the order notes. So if I go here and I look for BXSS, not here and not here. If we look at the edit HTML, you can see that it's been encoded properly and sanitized. But all the way down here, if we look, we close the text area, we open a new one, and this is where it's going to fire. But remember what I also said, they may collect user data. I assumed that the user data was going to be collected based on our support ticket, but it looks like there's another place right here. If we make another order, which I'm going to quickly do one more time, you can see that it is collecting our browser user agent. So if I were to replace it again, if I had that filter on earlier, let's go back and quickly make another order. But if I had that done properly, then it would have also fired in that area. So I'm going to make this order one more time. We're going to go back to that same page we were on. Let's go back. This one works. We're going to go back to all of the orders, refresh. So quickly refresh right here. We go to our new order. We can see there's no cross-site scripting here. I didn't put a payload here, but if we look at the customer metadata, and you can see right here, because I had the cross-site scripting payload in my request headers, I had it match and replacing in burp. You can see that it also fires here. So that's also a really good practice. There's going to be times where the web app firewall is going to block these kinds of headers. I always recommend having that in your headers as you browse the website if possible. So in case you trigger anything, any fraud detection, any order detection, whatever it is, that your payload is always within your user agent. But also let's take a look at the other websites. So let's look at the admin for users. So let's quickly log in. And you can see right off the bat, this is firing because our payload was in our name. And if we look at the DOM right here and we look at our payload, we can see that it is also happening here. We are in this table right here. We can look at it. It looks like they put us right here. It filtered everything like the special characters, like the closing character here, but the opening script tag still worked and it added that to the page and ended up firing for us as well. We're going to make sure there's no other areas for this. Nope. We're going to open up our name and we can see nothing else is firing for username. It shows Nahomi's, but it looks like there is something here that's missing and we can talk about it really quickly. This is an interesting one. Our XSS payload is nearly there, but it's not going to fire because we are within an input tag that we cannot close, but we have the ability to inject code into it. For the sake of this video, I'm going to skip this part. I'm going to let you figure it out. See if you can add some elements or some event handlers to make it pop in this admin panel on your own, and drop me a comment and let me know what is the solution to this one. Can you figure it out? Drop me a comment and let me know. With that said, to keep this video short, I'm going to skip the last step with the support part. It is very similar to what we have looked at so far. I don't want to ruin the fun and spoil the entire solution for this hub. I'm going to let you figure out the rest of it. But I want to quickly show you what it looks like on the back end of this on our XSS Hunter or my version of it. So this is kind of what it looks like from my end. It grabs a URI, it grabs the cookies, it grabs the referrer, the agent, and the DOM. The reason why the DOM is so important here is because I want to look for where the injection point is. Remember, a lot of times we don't have access to see what the website looks like. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab the data of this screenshot, put it in my address bar, and it's going to show us a screenshot of what it looks like. And you can see this is what I was showing you earlier. It is in the same exact spot as I showed you earlier, but just the difference here is that we can see the screenshot. Again, you don't have access to this. This is why the screenshot and the DOM are so important. By seeing this, you can go back and type in Nahomi's, for example. This is the word that we can see our injection is next to, and we can see this is where the injection was happening, and we need to copy this entire thing, maybe from right here. We can copy it and send it to the bug bounty program and say, hey, this is the URL it fired. This is the cookies we got. I can't see this website, but this is the URL for it. Here's a screenshot. And by the way, here is where my XSS payload was and it fired. So this is the entire way to get blind cross-site scripting to work. The whole purpose of this video is to go from payloads like this one, like your alert ones or confirm ones or whatever, to something like this one right here, where is our blind cross-site scripting payload. Because there's a wild luck using payloads like this one is there's been times where I've put this payload somewhere on a very large enterprise application and it fired randomly in some random admin panel and I closed the page on accident. And if it wasn't for this payload and tracking in this way, I would have not known what it fired and I wouldn't have the information that I do. So doing this is a good practice. You can always keep track of your vulnerabilities. You have it there. You don't have to retrack and see where you put it. It's just a really, really good habit to build. So let me know, what do you think? Do you like more content like this? Do you want me to make more content walking you through on looking for vulnerabilities like I do? I don't know, you tell me. But if you haven't already, you gotta do me a favor. If you like this video, you gotta hit that like button. You gotta drop me a comment. And if you haven't become a Nahomi yet, you gotta hit that subscribe button and become a Nahomi. All right, I will see you all in next week's video. Peace.